Welcome to today's session on mortgage processing, everybody. Thanks for logging in to listen. I am going to be recording this session, so if there's people in your team that weren't able to attend, it will be uploaded into the community so that you can listen to it in your own time as well. For anyone who's just logged in now, I'm just letting you all know that you are on mute. Just for the purposes of recording, obviously, but please feel free to use the chat function, which is in the GoToTraining panel, to send me an instant message throughout the session if there's anything that you just need me to go over or maybe speed up or go a bit slower. So today's session is pretty speedy. We're only going to be here for about 45 minutes to an hour, and we're really just focusing on mortgage processing in New South Wales. So what we're going to cover today is a very, very quick intro to PEXA. We're going to learn how to navigate through the dashboard. We're going to process a standalone mortgage, and then at the end of the session I'll show you where you can locate lots of help material in our PEXA community. So very quickly, and I imagine most of you already know what PEXA is, hence why you're logging into the webinar today, but essentially guys, PEXA is a web-based platform where we allow you to lodge land registry documents electronically. We also facilitate a financial settlement electronically if it's applicable to your matter. PEXA is integrated with the State Revenue Office and land registries in every state, and the only people that can subscribe to use the platform are licensed conveyancers, legal practitioners and financial institutions. Just quickly, before we actually get started in our training session, workspaces, if anyone hasn't heard of this terminology before, a workspace is kind of like an electronic file. So in PEXA, when we go to open up a mortgage file, we open up what we call a workspace. And essentially, we complete all our PEXA-related tasks within this workspace. So we create and we sign our documents. We transact with the land registry, so we actually draw in information direct from the land title, and they check our documents prior to lodgement through their lodgement verification process. Now, if it's applicable to your matter, you can actually invite people to join you into the workspace, and that would be applicable in, for example, a refinance scenario. But for today's particular matter, we're just doing a standalone mortgage. So it would just be us in the workspace creating our document and lodging it on our own. Now, if there are people who would like to actually practice during the training session, what I would get you guys to do is actually open up another browser so that you've got sort of two windows on your computer, and put the URL that you can see on the screen there into your browser and go to that website, and that's going to take you to our training environment. And once you get to that training environment, it will be asking you for an email and a password, and those details are up on the screen. So the email is user.jackie@pexa.com.au and the password is review17. And I'll just leave that up on the screen for a few minutes to allow anyone who's wanting to practice to actually log in there. Just send me a chat if you need those details for a bit longer. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the training environment myself now. Okay, so I'm currently looking at my dashboard, and hopefully a few of you have logged in as well and are looking at your dashboard as well. So we're in our training environment, guys, and it looks very much like the live environment. I'm going to do a very quick navigation around here just so that you know what everything is. But essentially, Gemma, when she set up the GoTo training webinar, she did put in there an online tutorial that you could watch, which was covering navigation. So that's why I'm just going to do a very quick one today. When we get onto the dashboard, what we're trying to do is locate the workspace that we want to work on. So as you can see in our training environment here, we've got lots of different workspaces. Okay, and all I'm doing is trying to locate the one that I would like to work on. And actually, Roxana, I know you're logged in here. I can see you've been doing stuff in the training environment today, so well done. So the ways that we can look for our workspace, we can select workspace reference here, and you can see that that sorts everything in alphabetical order. The same thing with the party name. So party name would be the party that your firm is representing. So we've got Mr. and Mrs. Black, Sarah Marsh, Jacob Marsh. We can click on workspace role and it will sort in alphabetical order. Settlement date and time, we'll put them in ascending order. And you've got jurisdiction across the top there. So if we click any of those panels, it just sorts in alphabetical order. You'll also notice that we've got little triangles in the top right-hand corner. And these are filters, guys. So it allows you to drill down and locate a workspace very quickly and easily. So for example, if I know what my workspace reference is, I can just use the filter here and search for it. Okay, and it comes straight to the top of the screen. And then I would just hit the view button and go straight into that workspace and start working on it. The same thing, if you wanted to use a filter for jurisdiction, you can filter and look for just your New South Wales matters perhaps. Okay, and they all just come to the top. So 2 ways of locating your workspace. The third way that you can locate your workspace is up the top here in this big search. So you can see there's a whole lot of other ways of locating the file that you would like to work on. I'm going to select suburb and search for Bondi and see what comes up there. We've obviously got a lot in Bondi. Our training environment uses the same addresses all the time, but obviously you might only have 1 or 2 coming up in the real world for your firm. I'm just going to go back to the dashboard, which is the home page. If anyone's practicing, please hit the dashboard button. I'll just quickly explain the top black section here. So our dashboard button takes us back to the home page. So if we ever get lost, we can just hit that and it will bring us back home. Our recent workspaces show us our 5 most recent workspaces. So if you're doing a lot of work on one particular matter, it's generally going to be appearing at the top here. When we've been invited into a transaction by another firm or another bank, we will see a little number 1 or a number 2 sitting over the invitations. It's a bit like you've got mail and that's where your invitations will be sitting. We haven't got any there today. Reports. This is more of an admin functionality. I'm not really going to talk about the reports too much, but I'll just click on it and show you the types of reports that you can run. The next one across is subscriber search. So if you want to check whether the party on the other side of your matter is registered for PEXA, you can search for them here. And this is the type of information that will come up for you. And lastly, the land title lookup. So if you wanted to check whether the land title you're about to use is valid for electronic lodgement, well then you can check it here by selecting your jurisdiction and just putting in that land title reference and hitting the validate button. Okay, and this one's come up. This is valid for electronic lodgement. If it wasn't valid, it would say it's not valid and it would give you a short reason as to why it's not valid, so you would know. If you're practicing, everyone, I'll get you to go back to the dashboard again, just so we're back on the home page. And just quickly up the top, you'll see that there's a help and community button. This is a great functionality where it's one of those intuitive searches. So if you're sort of doing a mortgage document and you're a bit confused or you're lost and you don't know how to keep going forward, you can hit the help and community button and it takes you to help on mortgages. Or if you're doing a caveat, for example, it'll take you to help on caveats. So nice intuitive search there. On the right-hand side, in the top right-hand corner, you can see I've got user Jackie. That's who I'm logged in as, and that's where I would be logging out from as well. Okay. Has anyone got any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat functionality in the GoTo training panel if you do. Otherwise, I will move on. Okay, so that was our very quick navigation. And just remember, guys, to have a little bit more in-depth knowledge of the navigation, we do have that online tutorial which got sent out with the GoTo training registration email. All right, well, let's learn how to process a mortgage because that's what we've all logged into this webinar for. We've got a really basic scenario to work from today, guys, because we don't want to make it too complicated because what we're trying to do is learn the steps in PEXA. Our scenario today involves Margaret and Maxwell Black, who have lending approved for $200,000 to renovate their home. The loan will be secured by a mortgage with their current bank, Whitsunday Island Bank. We are Kakadu Property Law and we're representing Whitsunday Island Bank. So you can just pretend that we're a panel member for Whitsunday Island Bank and we've received instructions to lodge this mortgage. So for this particular example, we're just pretending that Mr. and Mrs. Black have an unencumbered title, they've gone to the bank, they've signed the loan document and then handed over that duplicate certificate of title to the bank for the purposes of securing that money. And now the bank have instructed Kakadu Property Law to lodge that mortgage for them. So there are only a few simple steps in PEXA that you need to go through in order to successfully lodge a mortgage in New South Wales. The first thing we do is we create the workspace in the role of incoming mortgagee. We then check the land title details to make sure that we've put in the correct land title reference. We're then going to create our party details. So we'll need to tell PEXA that we are representing Whitsunday Island Bank. Now, for anyone who's on the line who is works at a bank or a financial institution, you won't have to do that in the real world because when you go to the participant screen, it will just say the bank name representing self. We'll then create our mortgage document and our cord consent. We'll then edit the lodgement instructions, view them, sign them and submit them. All right, so I'm going to go back into our training environment. If anyone else would like to practice as well, feel free to go along with me. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new workspace. So I'm going to use this big green button down the bottom. My jurisdiction is New South Wales. My representative role is going to be incoming mortgagee. I enter in my land title reference. So if anyone who is practicing, the land title reference is 7/SP5101 and hit that validate button. Now this is coming up saying the following land title is being referenced in all these other workspaces. Now that's just because in our training environment we use the same land titles, and you can see if I click on it, it actually drops down and tells me who's been using it. So you may come across that in the live environment as well if someone else in PEXA is actually using the same land title as you. So I'm just going to say yes to that question. We scroll down to workspace reference. Now workspace reference is your matter number or your file name. So it would be an internal decision as to what you're going to name this workspace. For today's purposes, I'm just going to put next mortgage. Is there a financial settlement required? We're going to say no to this because we're pretending that the bank's going to transfer the money into the loan account internally. There's no money flowing through the PEXA platform. Do we want to request the land title data now or later? Most of the time we're going to be saying now to that question. The only time that we would say later is if we're working on a subdivision or an off the plan and we've got a parent title which is getting subdivided. If you forget what to select there, you can see there's a little information eye. You can click on that and it will just jog your memory. Work groups are a bit like electronic filing cabinets. So if your firm or the bank has set up certain work groups, you would then file it into the correct work group. For today's purposes, I'm just going to select primary default and then hit the save button. Once I've hit the save button, it takes me back to the workspace summary screen. And the workspace summary screen is here to give us an idea of where we are at in our matter. So I can see here my workspace reference, Nick's Mortgage, is appearing at the top and the address of the property is appearing below. It's been drawn in straight from the land title. Underneath that, I've got a lodgement bar and the lodgement bar relates to the land registry documents. So what status are my documents in? Well, at this point in time, we're just in preparation, which really means work is to be done because we're still at that very first status. Once we've created our documents and they've passed a successful lodgement verification with the land registry, then that status will move to prepared. And once we have successfully signed off on those documents, the status will move to ready. And once we're ready to submit for lodgement. So that's where we always want to try and get to, is get to that ready status. A bit further down, you can see we've got some outstanding tasks here to jog our memory. So if we ever get lost and we don't know where we are or what we need to complete, we can always come back to outstanding tasks and see what we need to do. And we've got some document status and notifications here. But as you can see, nothing's populated yet because we haven't actually done anything. Now, you've probably all heard me say this before in training sessions, or you may have heard Gemma if she's attended your office. But the best way of navigating through the PEXA platform is not to click on these random outstanding tasks because we don't really learn too much when we do that. The most efficient manner of working through the platform to ensure that we get the information in the correct order is to use this blue panel here as our navigation tool. So now that we've opened the workspace, our next thing would be to click on land titles here and check that we've put in the correct land title reference. So I click on that land title reference and as you can see, all the information populates. So we've got the address, the proprietors, and down the bottom, we've got perform title activity check. So this is included in PEXA. When we open up a mortgage workspace, the system will automatically do a title activity check for the preceding 60 days. So has anything happened on the title in the last 2 months? And this one's come back negative. If it was positive, you'd be emailed a notification to alert you to that, and then you would take steps to investigate that further. Now, while we're on this screen, I will mention 2 things. The first one is this blue button on the top right-hand corner there, the Add Land Title. You're going to see a blue button on every single page in the top right-hand corner. And the blue button always relates to new things. So on this screen, it's relating to adding new land titles. On the participant screen, it will be about adding a new party. And on the document screen, it will relate to adding a new document. So whenever we see the blue button, we think it's new things. You'll also notice an action cog on every page, and we use the action cog to do everything else. So we use it to view things, we use it to edit things, we use it to sign things. So there's kind of 3 general rules when we're navigating through PEXA. We use the left-hand panel, We use the blue button for new things, and we use the action cog to do everything else. So now that I've checked my land title reference, the next thing to do is to create our party details. So I'm going to move down the screen to participants. And here I can see Kakadu Property Law, which is my firm, but they haven't got any parties sitting underneath them. The unrepresented parties are Mr. and Mrs. Black. So these are the people that borrowed money from Whitsunday Island Bank. Now remember, we're not too fussed about them. They're not our client because we represent Whitsunday Island Bank. The only reason the blacks are sitting here on the screen is because they've been drawn in from the land title information. So they are currently on the title, so they automatically get drawn into the participant screen. We need to get Whitsunday Island Bank to sit with Kakadu Property Law. So to do that, we use the blue button, participant, and select create a party. Under representation, we want to make sure it says I represent this party. And under the panel masters and frequently represented parties, if Whitsunday Island Bank have been set up as a frequently represented party or they are a panel master for the firm, we can select them from the drop-down box here and all the details will populate. So no free typing really required. However, if they're not a panel master or they're not a frequently represented party, that's okay. All you would do is free type their details here and fill out the details manually. Now, if anyone on the line is a financial institution, all you would be doing on the participant screen is reviewing it, because what it would say is Whitsunday Island Bank representing themselves. So that's the only difference between acting as a practitioner or acting as an FI. So as an FI, you're just reviewing the screen. All right, we'll move down to documents because we need to create our mortgage doc. So we'll click on the documents panel. And there's only one button that we can use on this screen. It's the big blue one on the right-hand side, create a document. And what we're going to do first is create our mortgage document. So on this screen, as you can see, the title has pre-populated, the estate and interest has pre-populated, and the mortgagor details have pre-populated. The mortgagee details, being Whitsunday Island Bank, have pre-populated. And mortgage duty, if it's applicable to your matter, you would enter in the duty assessment number here, but it's not applicable to this one. So I'll leave it blank. All I need to do is enter in the mortgage covenants. So you can select anything in the training environment. Obviously, you'd be selecting them as applicable to your matter. And append text to additional covenants. If you select yes to this, just be aware, everyone, that this field only holds 2,000 characters at the moment. So you really can't be putting in chapter and verse. It's only 2,000 characters. I'll just show you that document again. The title populated automatically. Mortgagor details have populated and mortgagee details have populated. All I did was enter in the correct mortgage covenants and then hit the save button. Excellent. So it's taken me back to the document screen and I can see I have lodgement instructions, which are a bit like our covering letter, and a mortgage document which is prepared. Now in New South Wales, there is an extra document that we have to prepare before we can send this mortgage to the land registry. And that document is called the CORD consent. So CORD stands for Control of the Right to Deal. So the party who has control of the right to deal prepares the consent document. And the consent is really a bit like an authorisation document, which the land registry requires from you. essentially, whoever is in control of the duplicate certificate of title, or whoever is named as the cord holder for an electronic title, they prepare this document, and it's a bit like saying, I'm in control of the title and I'm consenting to this transaction being processed. Because normally in the paper world, what you would do is attend the land registry and hand over the duplicate certificate of title with your mortgage document. But because we're processing this transaction in PEXA, we can't physically hand over the certificate of title. So this consent document is a bit like in lieu of handing over the certificate of title, the responsible party creates the consent instead. So I'm going to create that consent document now. So I'm going to use the blue button, create document, and this time select consent. And it really is quite important for everyone to remember that we create our land registry document first and then the consent document second. Okay, so the consent type is transacting party consent. So it's the party who is transacting in PEXA right now who is the party that's going to be lodging documents. The document to which the party consents is, well, we're consenting to this instrument which is in the workspace. I will just explain to you the consent type. There's an option for third party consent. So this would be if Whitsunday Island Bank was consenting to another party lodging something using the title. Okay. And if I selected third party, then I'd then be able to select whether the document was being lodged externally to PEXA, whether it was in PEXA, or whether it was a plan of subdivision. For today's purposes, it does default to transacting party consent and instrument in the workspace, which is the correct options. We then have to select add title and actually tell the land registry that we're in control of the title. So we'll select that. We click the drop-down box and select the title reference. And then it asks me for my cord evidence type. So do I hold a duplicate certificate of title? Am I named as the controller of an electronic title, or do I have a production receipt? Now, for everyone's benefit, a production receipt would relate to any pre-2004 titles that do not have a PAC code. So any certificates of titles that don't have that certificate authentication code, you do have to take them down to the land registry. They will examine the CT and give you a production receipt. So only pre-2004. I'm going to pretend that I'm holding a duplicate certificate of title. So I'll select that option. And then from the title, I would enter in the relevant details. So for edition number, I'm just going to put in 1, select the edition date, and put in that certificate authentication code. So for training purposes, we can put in anything. Obviously, in the real world, all these details are coming straight from the duplicate certificate of title. And then we hit confirm. As we scroll down, it just says that the consenting party is Whitsunday Island Bank, that they are in control of the title, and the operative words have come straight from the land registry. I'll just hit save. So now we're back on our document screen, and we can see we've got lodgement instructions, mortgage, and the cord holder consent prepared. Now, these two documents, my mortgage and my consent, are at a prepared status, but my lodgement instructions are still in preparation. Now, in order to move that status to prepared, what I need to do is edit the lodgement instructions and select how I want the new certificate of title to come back to me once this mortgage has been registered. So I'll do that now. I'm going to edit the lodgement instructions by using the action cog. Okay, so we've got the operative words set by the land registry, the subscriber details, it's Kakadu Property Law, and my reference number. The order of lodgement, I don't need to do anything with the order of lodgement because we're only lodging one land registry document and a court holder consent. But obviously if there's more than those documents, we would drag and drop them into the correct order. The issuing instructions down the bottom is where I tell the land registry how I want the new certificate of title to be issued after this mortgage has been registered. And you can see I've either got the option of having an electronic title, which is issue cord and do not print, or I can say print and deliver CT. So you would make that selection as applicable. And you'll see on the screen now that we have activated a lodgement verification. So a lodgement verification, for anyone who doesn't know, is the land registry checking our documents to see if there's anything that's going to stop them from getting lodged. Now we've got a question that's just come through from Nicola. So Nicola's asked, which address is normally used for CT delivery? So it's always the subscriber's address. So if it's a law firm representing a bank, it gets sent to the law firm and then the law firm will forward it on to the bank. If it's the bank who's preparing the documents in PEXA and they're the ones that have opened up the workspace, then it will go to the bank. So it really is whoever is the subscriber logged in. All right, so our documents have gone through a successful lodgement verification. We are now at prepared and successful. Now, if there was anything wrong with those documents, you would see unsuccessful. It would be red and there would be a nasty little cross there. And all you would have to do to see why it was unsuccessful is click anywhere along the document panel and it would drop down and underneath it would tell you what the error was. Okay. So you would have to then fix that error in order then to sign and submit your documents. Now that mine are prepared and successful, I will be able to view them. So I'm going to use the action cog to view. And we'll just double check these details to make sure we've put everything in correctly. And once you've viewed your mortgage, you can go ahead and view your consent document as well. So you just move across to the action cog and select view next to the consent. Okay. Now, if you noticed when you were viewing those documents that you've actually input the wrong mortgage covenant perhaps, you don't need to start again, you don't need to remove the document. All you would do is use the action cog and say edit, and then edit the document, put in the correct mortgage covenant. So nice and simple. Because I'm happy with those and they're all correct, the next step would be for someone to sign off on the documents. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. In the real world, someone would be inserting the digital certificate, navigating to the lodgement instructions and selecting sign. And you'll notice as well in the live environment that you won't be able to sign unless your documents have come back prepared and successful from that lodgement verification. So we've got quite a few checkboxes that we have to read through. I'll highlight as a very important one, the first one under the mortgage doc, which says the subscriber is reasonably satisfied that the mortgagee it represents has taken reasonable steps to verify the identity of the mortgagor and holds a mortgage granted by the mortgagor on the same terms as this registry instrument. So when we do a mortgage in PEXA, This checkbox is making sure that we still have a paper mortgage signed by the mortgagors. It's the only document in PEXA that requires you to have a paper version. So the signer would have to go through and check these check boxes and make sure that he's happy with them or she is happy with them and that they are complying, so that they have a client authorization form, they've taken reasonable steps to verify the identity of the mortgagee. And once they're happy with those, they're hitting sign documents, and this little box will come up asking for their PIN number. And that PIN number is personable to the actual digital certificate. So I've signed my documents, and that invokes the second lodgement verification. There's always 2 lodgement verifications in every single workspace. Excellent, I've come back signed and successful. I'll just show you on the workspace summary screen that my lodgement bar has just moved all the way across to ready now. And the only thing I've got left to do is submit that document for lodgement, because at the moment it's just sitting there as a signed doc. So to submit it, on my document screen, I just use the action cog next to the lodgement instructions, and I say submit for lodgement. And this is us sending it off to the land registry. I'm just going to go back to the workspace summary and show you that lodgement bar moving across. Okay, it's already at lodged. Lodged is a bit like in the paper world when you hand over your documents and the person behind the counter takes them and gives you your dealing number. And the same thing happens in PEXA. Once we get to a lodged status, we will get our dealing number as well. And that dealing number is located on the document. I will show you in just 1 second. We are complete. So to locate our dealing number, we go back to our documents and we click on the documents. I'll click on the mortgage, and there is my dealing number there. And there will be a separate dealing number for that consent document. So really nice and simple. What I'll do, guys, is if there's anyone practicing, I will get you to turn to page 10 of the workbook, which was attached to the registration email. It doesn't matter if you are an FI or a practitioner, it's page 10. And if anyone wants to practice, go ahead. I'm just going to go through that same exercise one more time. So if you're not practicing, you can just watch the screen. So I'm going back to my dashboard to create a new workspace, and I'm just going to replicate exactly the same thing. And while I'm going through this, guys, if you've got any questions, again, feel free to put them into that chat functionality and we'll answer them as we go through. So checking that land title and then using the blue navigation panel to work our way down to participants. We're creating a new party, so because they're new, we're going to use the blue button, participant, and create a party. I'm going to select Whitsunday from the Panel Master drop-down box, but remembering if they weren't in that drop-down box, I could just type them in here. If you're a financial institution, you won't have to complete that step. You will just be reviewing the screen. Using the left-hand panel, I'm moving down to documents now. I'm going to create my mortgage document first. So using that blue button, create the mortgage. Now, while we're just having a look at this mortgage document, I've got a question here from Karen. Should we have lodged a priority notice? Good question, Karen. Well, to be honest, a priority notice is worthwhile if there's a bit of a delay between you lodging your documents. Because we're coming into PEXA and creating the mortgage and lodging it immediately, that the need for a priority notice is probably eliminated because there's no delay. So you probably wouldn't need one. However, you may need one if you're doing a refinance perhaps, or if you're acting for a purchaser and there's a bit of a time period in between signing the contract and settlement. Once I've created my mortgage doc, I go straight into creating the consent document. So we are the transacting party consent and we are consenting to an instrument in this workspace. Click the add title and put in details. So what is your evidence? And fill it out accordingly. Excellent. So now I've got my mortgage and my consent in prepared status. I need to get the lodgement instructions in the same status. So to do that, I'm using the action cog to edit. Checking the details that have populated and then selecting the issuing instructions. So do I want an electronic title or a paper title to be delivered after this transaction has been registered? Right. So we are prepared and successful. I'm going to pretend that I have viewed these documents. So I would action cog the document and view, the same with my consent document. I'm going to pretend that I'm happy with them now. So I'm going to sign them. So I'm using my digital certificate, using the action cog next to those lodgement instructions and saying sign. I'm going to go through the check boxes to make sure that I comply with them. And entering in my special PIN. And there's that second lodgement verification in process. Once we're signed, we're going to submit that document off. So I'm using the action cog one more time and saying submit for lodgement. Once our documents get to that lodged status, we will be given our dealing number. Excellent. So we have now lodged our documents. Our dealing number, we just click anywhere along the panel of the document. It falls down and the dealing number is displayed below. And that is how we process a standalone mortgage in PEXA. Before we go any further, did anyone have any questions on processing the mortgage? No? Okay, excellent. That means it was nice and easy then. So just remember those 3 points, guys. We're using that left-hand navigation. We're using the blue button to create new things, and we're using the action cog to do everything else. I'll just quickly show you on the screen now that in a refinance, those steps that we just completed for a mortgage are pretty much the same in a refinance as well. So you can see here we still create the workspace and review the land title details. We still check the participant screen or create our party on the participant screen. And we still create our mortgage document. The only thing that we didn't do in that scenario was invite in the mortgagee on title, which is what you would do in a refinance scenario. So there's only like one new step there that you would have to step through. The other step that you would have to input in a refinance is entering in source funds. So essentially, the steps are almost the same, save for inviting in a mortgagee on title and inputting source funds into the financial settlement schedule. So there's no need to stress if you get invited into a refinance, because you'll know your steps are pretty much the same. Now, for anyone who's not yet familiar with the PEXA community, we do have a lot of help material located here. So it's a bit like our help centre. And I would encourage you that if you haven't registered already, please do, because it does give you access to a lot of videos, a lot of simulators, so where you can actually click through the steps that you would go through to create a mortgage. There's also lots of written material. And if there's something missing that you're looking for, you can ask a question and have someone from PEXA or another practitioner answer it for you. So if there's things that you would like to see more of, please let us know. We do take your feedback very seriously. And if there's stuff that is missing, or you feel that we could add in more, then we would love to hear from you. Well, if anyone has any questions, please feel to send them through the chat box now. Otherwise, if there are no questions, our webinar is finished. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you everyone for attending today, and I hope you found it useful. Like I said earlier, we will be recording this webinar, and it will be on the community for you to listen to or forward it to your colleagues if they need to listen to it at a later date. Okay, guys, thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Nicola.